It's not all about me. If you remember from last week's lesson, from that day on, did anyone dare question Jesus again? And unlike the previous lessons, Jesus is now speaking to the multitudes and his disciples instead of the Pharisees. Jesus now takes his case directly to the people. No, he hasn't forgotten the Pharisees. He's just stopped preaching to them and is now preaching about them. And in today's lesson, he's not using parables to do so. In the first verse, Jesus recognizes the important position that the Pharisees hold, saying they sit in Moses' seat. But at the very next verse, he paraphrases the rest of the lesson. So do as they say, not as they do. And he goes on to explain specifically what they do wrong. The criticism that Jesus raises in today's lesson is all about how religion, or for that matter, any following, can be altered by those who elevate their own self-importance above those that they are supposed to be serving. While Jesus may have been berating the Pharisees in the first century, what he is saying is still relevant today, maybe even more so. One of my greatest concerns about the church, the Christian faith, and even all of today's society is the selfishness that appears to be embedded in nearly every aspect of our lives. Rather than asking what we can do for God or for our neighbors, the common question seems to be, what's in it for me? Me, 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 my, us, us, us. This is the core principle of the so-called populist movement that has most recently become so outspoken in the United States and spreading worldwide. Watching out for number one. This thinking is absolutely repugnant to the basic tenets of Christ's teachings. Last week we listened to the greatest of the commandments, to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind, and to love your neighbor as yourself. Is it possible to love God, your neighbor, and anyone or anything when your first and foremost concern is your own self-interest? I think not. Now, don't get me wrong, self-preservation is embedded in the human psyche. And whether we admit it or not, we all have some protectiveness hardwired into our brains, and that's fine. That's the way God made us, and God understands. But what Christ is trying to teach us this morning is that we need to be able to put aside our natural instincts in order to learn how to love and live properly. We know it can be done. We've all seen it done by those who set aside their own safety and assist in helping friends, neighbors, and even strangers after the many natural disasters around the world. And in instances of heroic individuals, without thought to their own safety, put themselves at risk in order to assist those in need. When love abounds and Christian faith is really and truly a part of society, everyone wins. But when our first concern is to isolate ourselves, bury ourselves in our own cares and concerns by taking care of number one, everyone loses. The faith of Jesus is manifest, not in serving himself or his own self-preservation or happiness, but even Jesus had his human moments when he prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane, "Oh, my Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me." Just a few days after Jesus uttered these words, his faith was there for all to see as he was nailed to the cross. And even then, he was concerned for others rather than himself. Jesus didn't just verbally criticize the action of the scribes and the Pharisees. Throughout his ministry, he demonstrated to them and to us what real love, humility, and service to others looks like. It's not easy to disregard a natural instinct, but Jesus never promised that leading a righteous and loving life would be easy for us. We cannot expect to lead a life as Christ did, but with his help, we can all try. Amen.